Love makes you blind. But blindness is not an excuse when the knife is already in your back. Too many suffer in silence, chained to people who slowly kill their dignity, identity, and peace. This video is for those who feel trapped by affection, tormented by behavior they keep forgiving. Today, we solve this. Why some behaviors must never be forgiven, no matter how much you love them, not for revenge, but for survival. Loyalty is not affection. It is not love, nor is it friendship. Loyalty is a bond of bloodless contract, an unspoken oath between individuals that says, "I will not turn against you, even when I could." When that oath is broken, what you lose is not just trust, you lose clarity. The world begins to look different. The smile that once comforted now looks deceptive. The promises that once moved you now feel like traps. And the person who once stood beside you now resembles a shadow, always behind you, always close, and always dangerous. Betrayal of loyalty is not just a personal offense. It is a calculated act of psychological warfare. When someone betrays you, especially someone you trusted deeply, what they reveal is not a flaw in judgment or a moment of weakness. They reveal that they were capable of your destruction the entire time. The betrayal is simply the moment they decided it was time to act. Many betrayals come cloaked in subtlety. It doesn't always appear as a dramatic knife to the back. Sometimes it begins with a whisper, words spoken in your absence, narratives spun to weaken your image. Other times, it's an action. The moment you needed their support, they remained silent, watched your fall, and withheld their loyalty. Not because they couldn't help, but because they chose not to. Betrayal often hides behind passivity, but make no mistake, it is still betrayal. Silence in the face of your hardship, when help was owed, is an act of desertion. The most dangerous kind of betrayal is the one that pretends to be love. These are the ones who say, "I care about you," while simultaneously positioning themselves to benefit from your downfall. They compete with you quietly, they leak information slowly, they support you publicly, but sabotage you privately. This type of betrayal doesn't just hurt, it confuses. And confusion is where power slips. You begin to question your instincts. You replay conversations. You start doubting your ability to judge people. The psychological damage is far worse than the betrayal itself. Because now you're not just bleeding trust, you're bleeding clarity. Betrayal also operates through opportunism. When someone betrays you, it's because they see a better return elsewhere. They believe that siding with someone else, undermining your confidence, or exposing your weakness will elevate their own status. This is not about emotion, it's about leverage. You are useful. Now someone else is. And so you become expendable. To them, it's not even personal, it's just politics. In the court of loyalty, there are no second trials. Once someone chooses their benefit over your trust, they have told you their truth, they've removed the mask. The betrayal might be denied, it might be excused, rationalized, or blamed on circumstance. But understand this, betrayal is not defined by intention. It is defined by result. Whether it was a strategic decision or a cowardly impulse doesn't matter. What matters is that they made the decision to abandon the pact. People often make the mistake of measuring betrayal by its intensity. They say things like, "It wasn't that serious," or "They apologized." But betrayal should not be measured by how much it hurt. It should be measured by how easily it happened. Because someone who betrays you effortlessly today will betray you catastrophically tomorrow. Only thing that changes is the scale. Even worse, betrayal tends to escalate. Once a person sees that their disloyalty was tolerated, they gain confidence. They understand that the boundary is soft, that the consequence is minimal. And so, the next betrayal becomes more bold, more invasive, and more brutal. What began as small deception evolves into open defiance. That's the trajectory of tolerated betrayal. It grows like a parasite, feeding off your reluctance to confront it. Those who betray you once are not just showing you their character. They are showing you their method. They are demonstrating that when the game gets serious, your well-being will never be more important than their gain. And they will do it again. Always. Respect is the silent architecture of every relationship. It is invisible, yet its presence shapes everything. The tone of a conversation, the way one speaks your name, the pauses that allow you to finish your thought. All these are small signals of respect. And when those signals are missing, What remains is not miscommunication, but a clear declaration you are not feared and you are not valued. Consistent disrespect is not accidental. It is never random. It is intentional behavior masked behind sarcasm, mood swings, jokes, or indifference. It often begins subtly, mocking your opinions in front of others, interrupting your sentences, correcting you unnecessarily, or giving you the kind of smile that carries more contempt than affection. These are not quirks of personality. They are deliberate acts of psychological positioning. In the world of power, respect is currency. When someone gives you less of it, they are telling you exactly how they've priced you. People often confuse isolated incidents with patterns. A person who slips up once and apologizes with genuine remorse is one thing. But consistent disrespect is not a mistake. It is a habit, and more dangerously, it is a test. Every time someone disrespects you and you let it pass, they make a note. You've shown them that you are willing to trade your dignity for their presence. You've taught them that they can treat you as they wish and still keep access to your energy. That is the real transaction. The person who constantly interrupts you doesn't see your words as worth hearing. The one who dismisses your ideas doesn't believe you're capable of value. The one who rolls their eyes when you express emotions sees your vulnerability as weakness. These are not people who are simply having a bad day. These are people who have made a psychological decision. They do not need to respect you because they believe there will be no cost for not doing so. Disrespect is also a form of dominance. It is a power move. A person who talks over you, ignores your contributions, or challenges you publicly is asserting control. They are announcing to others, and more importantly, to you, that they are above you in the invisible hierarchy that governs all human interaction. Whether this happens in relationships, friendships, or workplaces, the mechanics remain the same. Disrespect is a social maneuver to lower your rank and increase theirs. There is a particular cruelty in disrespect from those who once admired you. When a person begins by idealizing you and then transitions into belittling you, what you're witnessing is not just a shift in attitude. It's an internal war within them. Admiration often turns into resentment when they realize they can't control you, outgrow you, or outshine you. So instead, they try to diminish you. They tear you down with subtle slights and veiled jabs, hoping you will shrink to the size that makes them feel safe again. What makes consistent disrespect especially dangerous is its tendency to normalize itself. The more you tolerate it, the less shocking it becomes. You start to question your own sensitivity. You wonder if you're overreacting. You convince yourself they didn't mean it that way. And in doing so, you allow the erosion of your self-worth to continue, quietly, slowly, invisibly, until one day, you no longer notice the weight of being degraded. Some use humor as a weapon, dressing their disrespect in laughter so you seem unreasonable for being offended. They say things like, "Don't be so sensitive," or "It was just a joke." But make no mistake, disrespect hidden in comedy is still disrespect. It is merely sharpened to cut deeper while avoiding confrontation. These individuals are not clueless. They are calculated. They understand how to weaken someone without appearing cruel. Disrespect is also reinforced by the reactions of others. When someone treats you poorly and the people around you say nothing, it creates a hostile environment where disrespect becomes the norm. Your silence and the silence of witnesses are both forms of validation. The offender gains social permission to continue, and you become increasingly isolated in your own degradation. Lies are not simply falsehoods, they are weapons. Each time someone lies to you, they are not just hiding the truth, they are reshaping your reality. And when someone lies repeatedly, they are not making mistakes. They are crafting a world where they control your perception and manipulate your responses. Repeated deception is not about ignorance or misunderstanding. It is about control, dominance, and strategic power disguised as error. To lie once may be human. To lie again and again, to twist facts, deny obvious truths, and manufacture realities, is to reveal one's true character. This kind of deception is an art form. It is not sloppy. It is calculated. The deceiver studies your blind spots. They know where your emotions lie and where your doubts hide. They target those weak spots with precision, weaving just enough truth into their lies to make them believable. That is how deception works best. Not through outright falsehood, but through distortion. A master manipulator doesn't need you to believe a complete lie. They only need you to doubt your instincts. There is a common illusion that love excuses lies, that if someone says they care, their deceptions are less harmful. This is a delusion created by the deceiver themselves. Repeated deception within intimate bonds is the most dangerous form because it combines manipulation with emotional leverage. The liar knows your feelings, your hopes, your need for connection, and they use those very things against you. Each lie becomes a tool, not to protect you, but to pacify you. The purpose is not to avoid hurting you. It is to maintain control over how much you know and how you react. Deceivers operate on cycles. First comes the lie. Then, when suspicion arises, they deny. If that fails, they deflect, turning the conversation on you. Why are you so paranoid? Why can't you trust? And if the truth is undeniable, they downplay it. It wasn't that serious. You're overthinking. The pattern always follows the same psychological sequence: mislead, manipulate, minimize. And with each cycle, your grip on the truth weakens. The more you tolerate, the more skilled they become. Repeated deception also reprograms your self-perception. When you are lied to consistently, you begin to question your judgment. You replay events. You wonder if you missed something. You feel guilty for asking questions. This erosion of self-trust is the ultimate goal of the liar, not just to keep you in the dark, but to make you fear the light, because a person who no longer trusts their instincts is easy to govern. You become dependent on the deceiver's version of events, even if you know deep down that it's poison. What many fail to understand is that liars do not lie out of necessity. They lie because it works. Deception is not always a last resort. It is often a first strategy. A person who lies repeatedly does so because they've learned it delivers results. It protects their image, preserves their comfort, and places them in a position of advantage. They have no reason to stop unless there is a consequence, something stronger than your forgiveness. Forgiveness, in the face of repeated lies, becomes fuel. When a person knows they can lie and still be welcomed back, they no longer respect you. They study your limits, and every time you allow them back in, you lower those limits. Eventually, there is no boundary, no standard, just an emotional freefall where your loyalty becomes their shield and your love becomes their alibi. The liar doesn't need you to believe them forever. They only need you to believe them long enough to get what they want. That is the brutal economy of deception. Truth to them is a tool, not a virtue, not a principle, but a utility to be used, bent, and discarded as needed. And those who lie repeatedly are not forgetful, confused, or lost. They are predators in disguise. They walk through life collecting trust not to honor it, to exploit it. Public humiliation is never accidental. It is not a slip of the tongue. It is not a joke gone too far. It is not a misunderstanding. When someone exposes your flaws, mocks your vulnerabilities, or belittles your presence in front of others, they are sending a message, not just to you, but to the room. They are performing dominance. They are asserting power. They are declaring to the world that they can reduce you, and you will not stop them. Public humiliation is one of the most vicious tools in the arsenal of the manipulator. Unlike private disrespect, which can be explained away or hidden, public shame leaves a mark that others witness. It is reputation warfare. The person who does it isn't just trying to hurt your feelings. They are trying to undermine your social standing, your perceived strength, your influence. Their objective is to lower your value in the eyes of others, to make you appear weak, foolish, or incompetent. The laughter in the room, the awkward silence, the diverted eyes, these are all forms of collective agreement, and the person who humiliated you counts on that silence to validate their power. Many cloak this tactic behind humor. They say, "I was just teasing," or "You're too sensitive." But humor is merely the sheath that hides the dagger. The moment someone uses a crowd to laugh at your expense, they are revealing the true nature of their character. They are not trying to entertain. They are trying to elevate themselves by stepping on your dignity. They understand that one well-placed comment, delivered at the right time in front of the right people, can permanently alter how others perceive you. What makes public humiliation especially dangerous is its strategic precision. It's rarely random. The humiliator selects their moment with care. When you are vulnerable, when others are watching, when you are least able to defend yourself without appearing emotional or reactive. It's an ambush disguised as conversation, and if you retaliate in that moment, you risk appearing unstable. If you remain silent, you seem weak. That's the genius of it. It corners you. It creates a spectacle where any response you offer will feed the outcome they intended. This behavior often comes from people closest to you, partners, friends, colleagues, because they know your insecurities. They know where to strike. And if you are emotionally entangled with them, you will rationalize it. You'll tell yourself they didn't mean it. You'll excuse the shame as a lapse in judgment. But each time you let it pass, you teach them that your public image is negotiable, that your dignity is flexible, that you will allow others to witness your humiliation and still return to the source of it. Powerful people understand one truth. Once your image is broken publicly, your influence weakens. You become easier to dismiss, to discredit, to disregard. That's why Machiavellian minds humiliate publicly. They understand that shame is a more effective weapon than anger. Anger creates enemies. Shame isolates. It causes you to shrink, to avoid attention, to question your worth silently while pretending everything is fine. That internal collapse is the goal. There is also a deeper cruelty in public humiliation because it involves betrayal. It is not just an attack. It is an ambush of trust. You let someone close enough to know your faults, and they use that access to entertain others at your expense. That betrayal fractures something essential in the human psyche, the belief that vulnerability can coexist with safety. And once that belief is broken, the damage is not just social, it is psychological. Those who humiliate you publicly often do so repeatedly, because it works, because no one challenges them, because people laugh and you stay silent. The pattern only ends when the balance of power shifts. Until then, every room you walk into with them becomes a battlefield where you're always one sentence away from being made the fool. Emotional manipulation is the most insidious form of control because it leaves no visible wounds. Unlike physical violence or overt disrespect, manipulation seeps into your mind like a slow-acting poison. It confuses, distorts, and eventually breaks your ability to distinguish between genuine emotion and calculated strategy. The manipulator's power lies not in brute strength, in their mastery over perception. They do not force you to surrender. They make you want to. The manipulator studies your emotional blueprint. They learn what moves you, what scares you, what you long for, and what you try to hide. Then, with surgical precision, they twist these pieces of you into tools they can use. They apologize not to show remorse, but to reset the stage. They cry not from pain, but to silence your anger. They praise you, then punish you, then praise you again, until you become addicted to the cycle, chasing their approval like a drug that never delivers peace. Their kindness becomes a weapon, because it is never stable. You never know which version of them you're going to face, the affectionate one or the cold stranger. And so, you tiptoe, you adjust, you anticipate, all in the hope of avoiding the next emotional ambush. At its core, emotional manipulation is about creating dependency. The manipulator wants to be the source of your highest joys and your deepest despairs. They want to control your emotional climate so thoroughly that your mood rises and falls according to their behavior. When they withhold affection, you feel empty. When they give it, you feel alive. But it is never consistent, and it is never unconditional. Every emotion they give you comes with a silent price. Sometimes it's your silence. Sometimes it's your compliance. Always, it is your submission. One of their most common tactics is guilt. They will make you feel responsible for their pain, even when their suffering is self-inflicted. If they act cruelly, it's because you pushed them. If they withdraw, it's because you disappointed them. If they lie, it's because they were scared of your reaction. Nothing is ever their fault. Everything is a reflection of your inadequacy, and you begin to internalize it. You start apologizing for things you didn't do, excusing behaviors that hurt you, and sacrificing your needs to avoid conflict. This is not love. This is psychological conditioning. Manipulators also thrive on confusion. They contradict themselves, change narratives, and rewrite history in real time. They say one thing today and deny it tomorrow. They accuse you of being forgetful, irrational, or overly emotional when you try to recall the truth. This tactic, often called gaslighting, is not accidental. It is designed to fracture your trust in your own memory, because once your sense of reality becomes unreliable, you will depend on theirs. And a person who controls your perception of reality controls your life. Another form of emotional manipulation is selective attention. The manipulator will praise you when you're useful and ignore you when you're not. This intermittent reinforcement keeps you trapped. You keep trying harder, doing more, sacrificing deeper, hoping to win back the warmth they once gave so easily. But that warmth is not love, it is leverage. They give it not to nourish you, but to train you. Like a master with a pet, they reward you only when you obey. Manipulators often disguise themselves as victims. They tell stories of how others have hurt them, how misunderstood they are, how cruel the world has been. This persona lures your empathy and lowers your guard. You begin to see their flaws as wounds and their cruelty as pain. You justify their behavior as trauma rather than strategy. But this is the great lie. A manipulator's pain is not always false, but it is weaponized. They bleed only when it serves them. Their tears are not invitations for connection. They are shields to deflect accountability. Emotional manipulation also thrives in isolation. The manipulator will slowly erode your outside support. They will make you doubt your friends, mistrust your family, and feel misunderstood by everyone but them. They position themselves as the only one who gets you, the only one who stays. And by the time you realize how alone you've become, you are already dependent on the very person who orchestrated your loneliness. Sabotage does not always come with hostility. It often comes wrapped in concern, cloaked in subtlety, and disguised as love. The most dangerous enemy of your growth is not always the one who declares war on your ambition, but the one who quietly poisons it under the pretense of protecting you. They don't need to tell you, don't grow. They only need to plant the right doubts, ask the right questions, make the right remarks at the right time. Their goal is not to defeat you, but to prevent you from realizing your own power. Because once you do, you may no longer need them, and that is what they fear most. Growth is threatening to the insecure. When you begin to rise, emotionally, financially, intellectually, they begin to see the distance forming. They sense the loss of control, the weakening of their influence, and the slow unraveling of a dynamic where they once held the upper hand. And so, they strike. Not with weapons, but with words. They call your ambitions unrealistic. They mock your dreams in front of others. They joke about your efforts, question your decisions, and flood your path with uncertainty. This is not guidance. It is sabotage performed in plain sight. Their methods are always subtle, because blatant sabotage would expose their intent. Instead, they dress their interference in familiarity. Just don't want you to get hurt. Are you sure this is for you? Don't forget where you came from. What sounds like caution is actually control. What looks like love is often fear. Fear of you becoming someone they can no longer manipulate, predict, or keep beneath them. The moment you begin to evolve, they begin to resist, not because your growth is harmful, but because it threatens the dynamic that served their comfort. Saboteurs often exist in the closest circles: lovers, friends, even family. They are the ones with access to your insecurities, the ones whose words carry weight, and that is what makes their sabotage so effective. They know where your doubts sleep. They know which part of you fears failure, fears rejection, fears abandonment. And they speak directly to those places with perfect timing. They undermine your confidence under the guise of keeping you grounded. They tell you that you're changing too fast, becoming arrogant, losing touch. But what they truly mean is that you are becoming untouchable, unreachable, independent. Growth is not just about improvement. It is about separation. When you rise, you naturally move away from those who refuse to grow with you. And for those who are committed to their comfort, your progress becomes an existential threat. It forces them to confront their own stagnation. It reminds them of the dreams they buried, the risks they avoided, the potential they abandoned. And instead of facing that discomfort, they choose to keep you small. They would rather see you stuck beside them than elevated above them. Many saboteurs weaponize your loyalty. They remind you of your past, your mistakes, your weaknesses. They invoke guilt, suggesting that pursuing your own path is selfish, ungrateful, or cold. This is just emotional blackmail designed to bind you to mediocrity. They do not want your loyalty. They want your obedience. They want you to choose them over yourself. And every time you delay your progress for their comfort, you reinforce their power over you. What makes sabotage even more sinister is how it erodes your self-trust. Over time, their doubts become your doubts. Their voice becomes the one you hear in your own head. You begin to second-guess every decision, every step, every win. You downplay your victories to avoid jealousy. You silence your goals to avoid conflict. You shrink yourself to fit into the version of you they find tolerable, and slowly, almost invisibly, you become a prisoner of their approval. People who sabotage your growth do not fear your failure. They depend on it, because your failure confirms their worldview. It keeps the hierarchy intact. It maintains the illusion that no one escapes the gravity of their smallness. And if you do succeed despite them, they will rush to rewrite the story, saying they were always supportive, always proud, always beside you. But those who sabotage never walk beside you. They walk behind you, holding your shadow, hoping it never gets smaller than theirs. Betrayal is never accidental. It is always a conscious decision, a transaction made in silence where loyalty is traded for personal gain. But when it becomes a pattern, when betrayal is repeated, forgiven, and repeated again, it is no longer just about the betrayer. It becomes a reflection of the one who allows it. There is no virtue in permitting someone to pierce you more than once with the same blade. To forgive repeated betrayal is not mercy. It is submission, and in the court of power, submission invites exploitation. The first betrayal can be argued as a mistake, an impulsive choice, a lapse in judgment, perhaps a result of weakness. But the second, the third, the fourth, these are no longer mistakes. They are strategies. The betrayer has learned something about you, that your forgiveness is not a shield, but an invitation. That your love can be weaponized against you, that no matter how many times they cross the line, you will redraw it to accommodate them. And so, betrayal becomes their currency, and your forgiveness becomes their guarantee. Each act of betrayal chips away at something deeper than trust. It erodes the foundation of your dignity, because every time you accept their apology without consequence, you're not showing strength. You are training them. You are instructing them on how far they can go and still be allowed back in. Repeated betrayal is not about their character. It is about your boundaries. And people who betray you repeatedly do not lack awareness, they lack respect. They know what they're doing. They just believe you won't do anything about it. The repeated betrayer operates with surgical precision. They know how to make their apology sound convincing. They know the right words, the right timing, the right display of remorse. But it is a performance, and one they have rehearsed. They do not feel regret for what they did. They feel fear of what they might lose. Their tears are not grief. They are tactics. And once they secure your forgiveness, they feel emboldened, not humbled. They've learned that consequences are negotiable, that even when they burn the bridge, you will rebuild it for them. Betrayal wears many faces. It may come as infidelity, disloyalty, broken promises, or secret agendas. But its core is always the same. They chose themselves over you, and they expected you to understand. They calculated the risk of losing you and found it acceptable. And when you take them back, you confirm their calculation was correct. You signal that your threshold for betrayal is high, that your standards are flexible, and that your love has no teeth. This pattern is most destructive when it comes from those closest to you, those whose presence is entwined with your sense of identity. A lover, a best friend, sibling. When someone close to you betrays you repeatedly, the damage becomes personal. Not only do they violate trust, they manipulate your attachment, your fear of abandonment, your history with them. They invoke memories, promises, shared struggles, all as tools to soften your rage and reset the game. Make no mistake, history is not loyalty. Time spent together is not a reason to tolerate treachery. If anything, it makes the betrayal worse, not more forgivable. The betrayer often returns with declarations of change, but words are cheap in the mouth of the disloyal. They speak of growth, of insight, personal development, as if their newfound enlightenment undoes the damage they've done. But true growth doesn't ask for reinstatement, it accepts exile as justice. A person who has truly changed does not demand your trust again. They understand they forfeited it. Those who demand your return, your understanding, your open arms, have not changed. They are simply negotiating their way back into position. The greatest illusion is that forgiveness equals healing. But in the case of repeated betrayal, forgiveness without distance is self-harm. You are not healing. You are silencing your wounds. You are covering the cracks with sentiment, hoping love will seal what loyalty has broken. But love is not enough. In fact, the more you love a person who repeatedly betrays you, the more you must be willing to walk away, because loyalty given to the wrong person is not loyalty. It's weakness wrapped in virtue. And weakness, in the eyes of a betrayer, is opportunity. In the arena of power, mercy has its limits, and those limits are defined not by love, but by betrayal, by disrespect, by repeated violations of your trust. The idea that love must be unconditional is the most dangerous lie ever sold to the strong. Because when love overrides your boundaries, when it excuses manipulation, sabotage, and betrayal, it ceases to be love at all. It becomes servitude, and there is no virtue in being loyal to someone who has declared, through action, not words, that they are your rival disguised as a companion. You are not cruel for walking away. You are not heartless for choosing self-respect over repeated forgiveness. The world does not reward those who tolerate everything. It devours them. Boundaries are not walls, they are gates. And those who cannot honor your value should be locked out, not welcomed back in. Each time you allow someone to stay after they've shown contempt for your dignity, you do not save the relationship. You sacrifice yourself. Some lines, crossed, must remain uncrossed, not because you are vindictive, but because you are wise. Let others call it harsh. Let them call it cold. But those who understand strength will recognize it for what it is: discipline, control, sovereignty. You do not need to destroy them. You only need to remove them. From your plans, from your future, from the throne they were never worthy to sit beside. Because in the end, the one thing more dangerous than those who betray you is you betraying yourself to keep them.